My name's Chloe Ramirez, and considering I live on a planet where I'm technically the size of an ant, it's a fair assumption that I would be afraid of the local wildlife, but even still, you'd be mistaken. You see, on the planet Panterica, a world where you can ride on the backs of ants as though they were horses, and the majority of the wildlife would be classed as colossal if placed on Earth's surface, which has given the planet the nickname of Kaiju Earth. It's a fair nickname considering the planet does look similar to Earth in every way imaginable. The only difference, and it is a big one, is that everything is at least 1,000 times the scale of what it would be on Earth. To the creatures here, the cities we have built are small forests, and the skyscrapers rarely reach the height of the tallest trees. But still, 3 generations in and the people in charge continue their scaremongering, claiming the kaiju actively want to wipe humankind off the face of the world. The truth is, I love studying the creatures as they pass by, and through reading about the animals of Earth, I've come to the conclusion that the kaiju of Panterica aren't that different. They aren't really that interested in the destruction of our cities or the deaths of our people. They see us in the same way we saw insects on Earth. We are way too small for the majority of the creatures to even notice us, and they very rarely acknowledge us at all. This is why I'm not scared to live here. I mean, sure, I wouldn't particularly want to be trodden on or crushed by one of these animals, and I do see it as justified if people are scared, but in my opinion, I'd much rather if they continued to live alongside us as they currently do, rather than starting to actively hunt our cities down and turning them to ash. Believe me, they could do this. Now, while I believe that the animals aren't an issue, I do think there is an issue on Panterica. Recently, an election was held to choose a new president. With there being less than a few cities on the planet, this president would be in charge of all people living on its surface, and it was between Troy Duncan, a muscular-built, stern military man, and Ernest Highwater, a slim, calm and collected man of science. From that point I knew who I wanted to vote for. At least, I would if I wasn't 17 and under the legal age to vote, which frustratingly is 18. Both were going back and forth on current issues within the cities and talking about how they would solve them, issues such as water filtration, pest control and better housing for the poor, but it didn't really kick off until the topic of defence came about. Troy clearly had one point he was desperate to push, which was the creation of lab-made kaiju under the close eye of the military. He spoke passionately and claimed that we needed to create our own monsters to protect ourselves from the natives. Ernest argued against this, as he would, considering the fact that there weren't regular attacks, otherwise it wouldn't have been too unjust of a suggestion, which is why what came next is so troubling. In recent months, the streets have been chaos. A week after the debate happened, a mid-sized kaiju had needlessly started attacking our city. I was in the street when it happened. I heard the squelching like thick clay falling onto the asphalt, getting closer and closer to my location from behind me. The ground beneath began to shake, and car alarms echoed through the city. Louder and louder the noise grew until I saw the beast. One hand clutched to the edge of a skyscraper, body appearing from around its corner. A towering turquoise beast with a bird's head and slime for hands and feet. Why was it here? What's it doing? Am I about to die? In that moment, I found myself paralysed. What was I supposed to do? Was it like that scene from Jurassic Park? Could I move, or would it only leave me alone if I stood still? But even in fear, I knew that no matter how far I ran, this thing would catch up to me in 2 steps. To have moved in that moment could have been the right move, but because of what it is, I wouldn't get very far. I was going to lose my life that day. But surprisingly, I didn't. A few moments passed, and the shock on my face turned to intrigue. This wasn't normal behaviour, especially for a kaiju. And even stranger was the fact that in the 17 years I had been alive, this creature had never made an appearance outside the walls. So, what was it? And how did it get here without anybody bringing it up or sounding an alarm? I scanned the creature, taking every single detail of its grotesque physiology to memory. It didn't look like any of the animals from around the area, any of the kaiju that I knew lived close. But still, I desperately scanned through my thoughts, hoping that I knew something about this animal. Hoping that what I was currently contemplating was wrong. Was this a man-made kaiju? I stared, terrified at the thought, but saw that its eyes weren't even on me. It was looking for something or someone, I thought to myself. Then in the corner of my eye, I hadn't even realised, Then in the corner of my eye, I hadn't even realised, I saw Ernest Highwater stepping from the back seat of a sleek black car. He was shaking and was cautious when exiting the vehicle. I turned around to get a better look and saw the glint of light on his cheek, where a droplet of sweat had rolled down his face and the setting sun had caught it. He stood there for a moment, I can only assume going through the same thoughts as I had been, before whispering to himself, "Troy, what have you done?" As soon as I heard those words leave his mouth, my eyes shot back towards the creature. Its eyes were wide, and saliva began pouring from its open crimson beak. It was fixed, its eyes unwavering, tilting its head and hissing slyly. Ernest didn't stand a chance as he turned on his heels and ran towards the opposite side of the road, away from the creature. It screeched loud and high enough that the glass erupted from all the windows and shattered to the ground in huge shards. Two large wings tore through the steel beams of the skyscraper on either side, and its feet left goo-filled craters in the asphalt. Cars were flung into the air or flattened with civilians inside of them. Other civilians either hung or fell from the gaping holes in the buildings, and then, as if it couldn't have gone any worse, the top floors of each building collapsed to the ground. I dived out the way into the nearest alleyway as the creature ran past. A few shards of glass tore gashes into my arms and legs, but I otherwise got away unscathed. I fell to my knees, shaking in shock, tears and sweat rolling down my face, asking myself what had just happened. What should I do? Did I actually just survive that? My vision became blurred as I faded in and out of consciousness before I myself collapsed to the ground. I find myself telling you this because I don't want to be the only one in the know about this plot. It's clear to me now that Troy Duncan has somehow managed to convince a geneticist to create kaiju for the military, and has now used them to turn more people in favour of him, further continuing this venture of his. Since that attack, there have been 12 others, all from kaiju that have never previously been seen in the locations they have attacked, and I doubt we'd find them anywhere on the planet. Please, Marcus, will you help me?